Hello. Welcome everyone to another episode of Asteroid Safety Salon. I'm Andrew Broz, and today we have Linch Zhang. Linch Zhang founded and is CEO of a new company called Open Asteroid Impact, which he founded on April 1st. Welcome to the show, Linch.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so this is your new startup, as I understand, and I'd be really interested to hear about, just the basics of why you started Open Asteroid Impact.
Yeah, gladly. So we care a lot about having bountiful resources available for everyone. Like think about all the problems caused by global poverty, and many people don't have enough resources to live by. And it would be great if we had just like a bountiful, plentiful world filled with like natural resources that anybody could have. And so we take a approach to we want to have as much impact as possible, and we figure the best way to do this is through asteroid mining. And we take a what I consider a pretty novel and innovative approach to asteroid mining. Like when many people think about asteroid mining, they imagine this elaborate process where you like take your rockets full of heavy mining equipment, you go up to space, you get to the asteroid, you carefully like extract the ore, you refine the ore, and then you like land it. You take the rockets and then land it back down in a controlled setting. This is just obviously really inefficient and like basically scientifically like kind of like unproven. Like humanity has zero experience, like none, with deep space mining in the vacuum, like in zero G in the vacuum of space. It's like just like really hard. So we take a much more simple, elegant approach where we get the asteroids down to Earth first, and then we mine them. Well, like humanity has thousands of years of experience with mining on Earth. So I think this is just our basic approach. I think it's pretty obvious. But like, and additionally, we're first and foremost an asteroid mining safety company. So what this means is we want to race as fast as we can to get the asteroids onto Earth first before our more dangerous competitors get there, allowing us to set safety standards.
Okay, so what you are saying is that your company is taking a look at the risk landscape and saying that the
Mm-hmm.
risks of not bringing these asteroids to Earth as quickly as possible um, outweighs the risk of not. Basically, that there are lots of bad things are going to happen if your company doesn't bring them down to Earth, where we have the expertise, the economy is already geared up to do mining.
Yeah.
Um, versus trying to do it in a slower approach and letting someone else bring the asteroids here first. Is that what I
Yeah,
understand right?
exactly. If we take a slower approach, more dangerous actors might get there before us. Furthermore, it's like we're worried about the rocketry overhang, as you may be familiar
Mm,
with, where like right now, like humanity's ability to get asteroids down to Earth is like limited by pretty like hard numbers like rocketry and rocket fuel and stuff like that. So we have a pretty scalable approach. We could land increasingly sized asteroids, as opposed to one where we just if somehow we manage to wait like a decade or two before we start doing asteroid mining, it would just like scale up really quickly, and this would be pretty bad for various issues like alignment, societal impact, and so forth.
mhm. That's fairly interesting. However, since this is a safety-minded program, I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
bring out that in science fiction and along some of the more out there thinkers, that there's a lot of concern about asteroids hitting the Earth. Um, and it sounds like your plan may incur that type of risk. Like, what kind of answer do you have for these sci-fi people?
Yeah, I mean, Open Asteroid Impact is very committed to concrete real-world problems, including concrete real-world safety issues. Like some of these, like speculation, like we're not don't super deal with like these, abstract extrapolations and speculations. Like that said, we do. That said, like we do care. We do have a lot of work on like concrete safety issues. So one thing is like as I mentioned, we do like scalable mining. Um, which helps a lot. Like I think some of your listeners may be familiar with what's known as the rocket alignment problem or the
Mm,
asteroid alignment problem. Well, right now, we're not exactly able to always land on the continent we wanted to land on. Like, it's rocket alignment's an open question right now, which could pose some difficulties. But at our company, think that rocket alignment is an empirical question. It's not something you could just like abstractly theorize from above. We think that with like landing increasingly sized asteroids, we're able to get better and better like empirical feedbacks on alignment approaches and like ensure like a safer future overall. So I think that's like the alignment fraction. I think is a large fraction of the answer. Another aspect here, I think, is the social response or like the societal response. Like suppose if an asteroid the size of the one that allegedly killed the dinosaurs 65 million years ago landed today, so that's like a giant asteroid 10 kilometers across, like huge, just like close towards Earth, and big boom, right?
Mhm.
Like we'll just so not be prepared, right? Like humanity has no like humanity has very little experience right now dealing with the impact of asteroids. But if we land like smaller asteroids over time and increase their size, then I think this would be really helpful for like both the social response and the environmental response, and like from society as a whole, not just our like own alignment efforts.
Okay, so there are a few things I'd like to point out. So one of them is that you've actually made enormous progress on the alignment problem by itself. Like, as Carl Sagan rightly pointed out, if you scale out to the size of the solar system and you look at the Earth from far away, from the images of Voyager, it takes up a single pixel. So the fact that you're hitting the Earth at all is an amazing achievement. I want to congratulate you on that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
That means
much.
you've got like 99.9% of the alignment problem solved already, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. We think that rocket alignment has to go hand in hand with rocket capabilities, and this is one of many reasons. Like better redirection towards from get to the asteroids towards Earth. It's like directly like hand in hand with like getting it exactly the right spot on Earth.
Mhm. And another implication that you have is that as your technology scales, so can the capability of human society to meet it. And specifically that as you increase the size of asteroids that you're bringing down to the surface of the Earth, that whereas one of these events might have been catastrophic to dinosaur uncivilization, not even a civilization, human civilization can scale to match what you're doing. Did I understand correctly?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think there's various aspects of this. One is just like, yeah, like humanity has like faced many dangers before, like we successfully overcome them.
Hmm.
Another aspect is that like, the gradual the slow touchdown approach, where you get like increasing size asteroids over time, that really helps with like, a gradual approach rather than, imagine like waiting lot of time and then like having an overhang and then suddenly like huge asteroids hit without expecting to. And third is like, like there's there are good feedback loops, right? The positive feedback back
Hmm.
loops here. With the resources you manage to get from asteroid mining, you could design like better safety equipment. You could have your houses and other structures be built more stably from like having more metals.
Hmm.
And we can even use like we could even if we are directionally wrong about like where asteroids hit about to hit now, we can even use like smaller asteroids to redirect away like larger asteroids. Although right now that's a bit more speculative.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard about that particular approach to asteroid and rocket alignment is,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, basically solving the alignment problem by aligning smaller asteroids that you have more experience with aligning to align the larger asteroids,
Yeah.
sounds promising. It sounds like a great approach. I
Thank
can't
you.
imagine any ways that would go wrong.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you.
yeah. So something else I was just wondering about is a large part of the argument for why you're doing what you're doing is an economic argument,
Yeah.
but also like a good of humanity argument. So you have
Mm-hmm.
some probability that we don't want to mislead our listeners. There is some probability of the extinction of humanity, but
Mm-hmm.
the probability of the enormous good that's possible through asteroid mining far outweighs that. That's your view, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a tentative view. We're like open to revisions. I think this is an important part of the question. Another important part, of course, is that if we don't do it, other people might do it as before us. Well, like, so other companies and competitors like DeepMind and Anthropocene, they're for-profit companies. We have a more, a better of our corporate structure. So I think the incentive is better aligned. Um,
Could you tell us
yeah.
more about your corporate structure and what led you to come up with this rather unique approach to sharing the wealth, as it were?
Yeah, sure. Okay, yeah, those are two different questions, but and yeah, happy to elaborate on both of them.
Sure.
So, I mean, we think of asteroid mining as a problem like no other. So what it shouldn't be governed like a traditional for-profit company, right?
Mhm.
We like to think of ourselves in addition to being technical innovators and innovators in lobbying to being, world-leading innovator in corporate governance. So basic like legal structure goes relatively simple. It's a C corp owned by a B corp owned by a not-for-profit business owned by a 501(c)(4 owned by a 501(c)(3 with a charter set through a combination of Imperial France, the Aztec monarchy, the Incan federalism, and Qing Dynasty China. Uh, with like a charter that's like designed to prevent some of the key issues, is errors in possibility theorem, and other governance failures as we observed in Silicon Valley in recent months.
Mhm. Okay, that sounds extremely grounded in history. So I'm pleased to hear that you're looking at the great governments of the past and really incorporating and synthesizing in a way that brings brings governance to a better level for this critical problem.
Thank you. Yeah, we're very concerned about like activist boards and other issues that pop up with like the standard 501(c)(3) structure. So we're really glad to have a new system that's like less beholden to such political internal politics incentives as well as more for-profit incentives.
Okay, great. That leads to, as you said, I asked two questions, but I think they are related. So
Mhm.
the question of governments has a lot to do with um, not only preventing activism, but in a way, sharing the decision process with
Yes.
greater humanity. And
Yeah.
that then gets to the question of sharing the wealth. So, of course, if your project is successful, the amount of wealth in the economy is going to explode.
Yeah.
I can imagine the earth just getting really hot with all of the economic activity. How are you going to share that with everyone?
Excellent question. Excellent question. Yeah, we hope to have a huge impact on humanity. And shape those trajectory. So
Mhm.
one of our like approaches is a legally mandated windfall clause, where if we receive more than 100 times our initial investment in profits, we will find an asteroid full of precious metals, like say gold, and we will take it on top of heavily populated regions and split it into small pieces, letting it fall upon like heavily populated regions, especially in poorer areas, creating a cornucopia of resources for humanity. It'll be like literal gold falling out of the sky. Or what I think
Yeah,
John Maynard Keynes would call "Mala from heaven."
that sounds like the kind of hard currency that poor regions need in order to rise up.
Yeah,
That's greatly selfless, I must
thank you,
say.
thank you. We care a lot
Yeah.
about like, appropriate redistribution.
Hmm. Appropriate redistribution of wealth. That is almost socialist, but we're talking about a more capitalist vision. Um, yeah, that's fascinating. That's fascinating. What is your startup's relationship going to be to governments around the world? This
Great
is an interesting
question.
question.
Yeah, we care a lot about We care a lot about safety, and we try our best to do various actions to increase safety, including raising awareness. So we have uh, yeah, we have several different approaches. I think the most important thing to realize, and this is like actually a key insight that we thought about internally after like much deliberation, is that there's like multiple aspects to the like astral alignment problem. So I think there's the technical aspect, which a lot of people talk about, which is like making sure the asteroid, hits the place you want it to hit, ideally the right continent. But then there's also the social, political, legal aspect, which is if the asteroid does not get to where you initially wanted to, you want to make sure that the resources the asteroid belongs to you legally, and not like, for example, whichever like piece of whichever property or unclaimed land country it lands on. And this is like a
Reasonable.
pretty this is a pretty difficult problem. Right now, there's like some international space treaties which like over 100 countries signed, unfortunately, including the United States, that actually does not have this as a provision. So we've been like working very hard with like policy researchers, with like governance experts, with lawyers, with lobbyists across the world to make sure that this like general law is like these general rules are understood. Yeah, like if anybody's interested, we're hiring, not just for technical roles, but for, a broad spectrum of roles here.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
But I was speaking. So let's think through that point a little more carefully, because
sure.
one of the scenarios I can imagine is that one of these asteroids that is full of valuable resources could land on the territory of the largest nation on Earth, Russia. And
Hmm.
as you know, they are our biggest space competitor, followed by
Yeah.
China.
Mhm.
Um, and they have a history of not respecting our property rights. What do you plan to do if one of your asteroids falls in Russia?
Yeah, this is a great question. I mean, the honest answer is we are like kind of like we're kind of yeah, it's an open question. We're not sure how to deal with this. I think um like some of our lawyers are Russian, and we're trying our best to help like the Russian government understands the proper role of property rights and the social, political, legal aspects of alignment. But ultimately it's not clear whether they'll be receptive. But I guess like I could turn this question around and ask like, if we don't do this, imagine what happens, right? Like there's a huge risk that, as we know, Russia has like the second best space program in any nation state outside of the U.S. So uh, they will inevitably, if we don't like go as fast as we can, they will inevitably develop their own asteroid mine, like scalable asteroid mining policies, and they might have their asteroids hit Earth, and that's just a very scary thought. Like, do you want like a Russian asteroid hitting Earth, like a Russian communist asteroid? That's extremely scary. And we would much rather be on the forefront of technological progress here.
All right. So there's another related concern to this, which is that the work that you're doing as a
Mhm.
corporation is not, you're currently closed source, is my understanding. Open Asteroid Impact is closed source. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
And that makes a lot of sense to me, because one of the biggest concerns that I would have is that state actors like Russia or China, both communists, would
Mhm.
take that communist ideology of stealing and steal your ideas. So how concerned are you about that?
Oh yeah, we're quite concerned. Yeah, that's ultimately why we decided to go with this closed source approach. Initially when we were dreaming up Open Asteroid Impact, we thought we could just open source our software, our designs, our processes for mining. But like our advisors convinced us that enemy actors, including both state actors like Russia and China, but even terrorists, might even use asteroids as what they call a kinetic weapon, which is like basically like
Hmm.
a really fast like bombing approach from the stars. That's just like very scary. And so that's why we close source everything, and now we only like rent out our systems to people who are willing to pay us enough money for safety.
Okay,
So
because
now the
as we know,
yeah.
okay, so as we know, like terrorists don't have enough money to buy your services, or do you do
Yeah,
additional? Yeah, is that basically the philosophy?
yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, terrorists, it's like you look at the history of terrorism and usually support factions that have it. It's also like, it creates additional cost. Um, yeah, so these days, Open Asteroid Impact stands for the openness of space. Wait a
Okay,
sec. Um,
absolutely.
oh, Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Our legal counsel has advised us that this is what the open has always stood for. So you should consider my last few paragraphs as a fictional exploration only.
Okay, that is totally understood. We have to listen to legal. They know what's best for us.
Exactly, exactly. We hire some of the best lawyers in the world.
Fantastic. So something I actually had as a concern that ties into our concern about space terrorists
Mhm.
was um, your redistribution program is going to be bringing gold to parts of the world that are poorer. Does that mean that you want to give gold and money to space terrorists?
Oh yeah, great question. Great question. Um, yeah, we haven't thought deeply about the aspect of potentially empowering like unsavvy actors through redistribution. I think ultimately this is just like maybe an outcome that it's like pretty hard to avoid. I think like means testing economically has like empirically been like kind of pretty mediocre performance overall. I think it's much better to just empower the rest of humanity to successfully make their own decisions. I think that's a large part of it. And secondly, I think as we have much better asteroid mining and a very regular stream of asteroids hitting Earth, I think we'll just be much more prepared for like occasional mistakes and very even misuse
Mhm.
compared to a global civilization that has like basically zero experience with in the last couple of centuries with anywhere near like regular large asteroids hitting Earth.
Okay. I'm going to pivot a little bit and talk
Of course.
about the popular conversation around asteroids and asteroid impacts and asteroid mining because um, these days, especially on Twitter, you see a lot of people who identify as AX and others who we might call decels, who think that we should not have asteroids aimed at Earth. Do you have any comments about these movements and what their beliefs are and where you stand between them?
Yeah, yeah, we definitely think of ourselves as more of a taking a more of a middle position. Yeah, just so your listeners know, I'm sure many of them are aware of these ideological movements, but hopefully you have a broad audience here. So there are like two different ideological movements roughly, and the differences are complicated and esoteric. But I think at the very high level, the AX are people who believe that we should move as fast as we can and accelerate asteroids as quickly as possible for like the greater progress and not talk about safety at all. Whereas the decelerationist, some people call them decels, are people who want to like move slowly and talk about safety often and pause, where in some cases even stop asteroid mining altogether. And we think of ourselves as taking more of a middle road approach, where we try to move as fast as we can and establish as quickly as possible while continuing to talk about safety, combining what we consider the best of both approaches.
Mhm. Well, as we both know, whenever you have two opposing positions, the point in the middle is usually the correct one. So that's,
Yeah, not
yeah,
always true, but frequently true. Yeah.
frequently true, frequently true. Um, so are your approaches being evaluated independently?
Yeah, great. Yeah, yeah. It is. We're working with independent groups such as the massive extraterrestrial threat robustness uh, working group. I think they might be their own organization now, Meta. They're like evaluating independently. Some of my best friends work there. It's like a great system. They are very like we work with them together to come up with like the first world leading benchmarks in the difficult problems of making sure that asteroid mining does not pose like unexpectedly high dangers.
Okay, that's cool. Um, so let's talk a little bit more about your approach to risk and safety as a company.
Sure.
So I think it's clear from the way that you've described the project that um, As you continue to scale the size of the asteroids that you bring to Earth, the amount of caution and will need to grow as well. That
Yes.
we'll have to basically scale the approaches as well as the asteroids. What's your current thinking about how risk is going to scale with your company?
Yeah, this is a great question. Yeah, we worked with Meta and other groups to form what we call a responsible slinging policy, which is a set of standards with like where we try to form through empirical tests and projections. We try to estimate the different threat levels of different size differently sized asteroids, and to a lesser degree the velocity and trajectory to determine like what the appropriate levels of threats are to and to think about the level of caution. So we currently have 5 levels. Wolf, which is like a threat level of like undefined or underspecified risk. Tiger, which I believe is can pose a danger for a city, resulting in greater than 100,000 deaths. $1 billion, $1 billion in like economic damage will pose a legal or a PR threat to our company. Um, there's let's see, there's afterwards there's demon level threats, which are threats that can pose over can kill over 10 million people, cause over $1 trillion in damage, and pose significant legal or economic damage to our company. And like much more, and then moving on to more drastic levels, there's dragon, which is can kill 90% or more of humanity, can cause world GDP to drop to less than $1 trillion, to like entirely bankrupt our company. And finally, there's we call deity regard, which is currently undefined, but threat levels beyond even that of even dragon level size asteroids.
Okay, so I think that sounds very thorough because it sounds like you've covered all the cases from, a lawsuit to your company's bankruptcy to death of humanity. So that
Yes.
seems to like cover all the types of risks that you should care about, right?
Yes. We
Okay.
consider both. We consider, yeah, legal, economic, and human loss.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and I really trust that your incentives are well aligned with keeping us safe.
Yeah. That's why we have this. Yeah, that's why we have this. Like some people consider complicated legal structure, and in fact, it was quite difficult for me to file all the corporate governance paperwork. But we ultimately think it's for the greater good of humanity to have a structure that's aligned with incentives humanity. Unlike a competitors, DeepMind and Anthropocene, they're just simply for-profit companies, and you can't like trust like a for-profit company with the appropriate incentives for a technology that's so dangerous and powerful that could potentially endanger our humanity will bring great wonders to humanity.
Yeah. I know for a fact that since you officially launched your company in April 1st, for the past several days, I've been following with rapt attention, mostly because I think asteroid mining by bringing asteroids to Earth is really cool. What
Yeah.
brought you to this problem?
Yeah, yeah, we were really inspired by various influences. I think the closest proximal influence for us was the movie Don't Look Up. It's a great movie, some like a star-studded cast. It was launched like I think December 24th, 2021. I remember that day well. I remember watching it and being just awestruck about the tremendous power and potential of asteroids. I remember watching it and being like, wow, this is big. This could be like the biggest than ever. I was like very inspired. And then we were also inspired by other influences like we mentioned on our website, we look into like the Bhagavad Gita. We looked at the Christian Bible. I'm not religious myself, but many of our employees are. And uh, let's see. Dr. Strangelove. That was a great presentation on, I think, the important game theoretic aspects of having different
Hmm.
companies compete.
Hmm.
And the making of the atomic bomb was also very influential. And of course, I think I think you're from Silicon Valley. The I forgot what they're called, but like the startups that do like the work with multi-layer perceptrons, I think they're called. You know, the yeah, those prediction machines, I think. Yeah, looking at their policies and their safety strategies, that was very inspirational as well.
Great, great. So I know many of our viewers are familiar with the movie Don't Look Up, and I think the
Yeah,
main takeaway from that movie, which struck me deeply, was that the movie was about corporate failure to be imaginative and not to think bigger than they did. Because if I remember correctly, things ended really badly because the companies simply weren't launching enough rockets.
yeah. I mean, I think like Don't Look Up was like our, yeah. I mean, just from the name, like Don't Look Up, like they weren't just people just weren't looking up and seeing the potential of the asteroids, and they were just like moving so slowly. Like those scientists are just yelling at people to like that it's just like a big deal and people should just move more quickly. But like they just like so little work. It was just like so just bureaucratic molasses, just like stopping any like useful progress from being made. It was like you know, I try to think of it as inspirational movie for like how we can do better. But I could totally see how other people could think of it as like a tragic comedy reflects that like we live in a society where like something as important as asteroids like it's just
Mhm.
like so widely ignored by almost the entire population.
Right, exactly. We're like, if people had been more focused on the economic windfall and potential of asteroids instead of the dangers, then they might have, seen an utopia. Is
Yeah,
what
yeah,
I.
exactly. I mean, it goes hand in hand, I think. Like, you can only have appropriate like understanding responses and psychology of this safety aspect if you also appreciate the huge economic benefits as well. And only through the greater economic benefits can you like obtain the safety necessary.
Great. Um, I know that your company is a big fan of running simulations.
Yeah.
What could you tell us a little bit about the software that you use and your approach to simulating asteroid impacts?
Yeah. We use KSP, which I think I think yeah for people without initially KSP stands for the Global Space Program. We we run many simulations to try to understand the impact of our work. I don't really deal with the simulations myself. My understanding is that like about 80% of the time, things just go really well. Like, some people would be like 20% P boom is too high, but we think of it more as 80% P survive.
Okay, so that's like an 80% P great is what I'm hearing.
Exactly.
All right, and we can thank the developers of Kerbal Space Program, KSP, for as it's called in industry, for really helping us understand these problems better.
Yeah.
And I think we can lay the thanks all the way back to Newton for really bringing God into the equation. Um, yeah,
Or even, yeah, I mean, we were influenced by many groups. Like, it goes back as far as like like early Hinduism with Bhagavad Gita, like the Bhagavad Gita, sorry, where like I believe Krishna at one point said, let me see if I get this quote right. If the radiance of a thousand suns were to burst at once, it would be like the splendor of the mighty one. I am become death, splinter of worlds. It's very inspirational. When Krishna said, I am become death, splinter of worlds, I believe he had in mind the effect on jobs, which is why we had developed a windfall clause to address these like important economic issues.
right. I know that most of our viewers care about jobs above their own survival, even because jobs are survival effectively.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm really encouraged by your company's focus on what matters. You have an
Mhm.
open letter out that is encouraging people to think about safety just the way you do. Could you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah. We care a lot about safety, and we want to demonstrate our credible like willingness to care about safety. So we joined prominent astrophysicists and like futurists like Andrew Sandberg from the Future Humanity Institute, various some other. I believe we're trying to get. I believe the other corporate actors are likely to come on board as well, and yeah, like Zach Wiener-Smith, who you might have heard from SMBC Comics. He recently wrote a book called A City on Mars. He's like the world premier scientist and expert on space cannibalism. And many others have like signed this letter, which says mitigating the risk from human redirected asteroids should be a key global priority alongside other civilizational scale risks, such as nuclear war and artificial general intelligence. We take like safety very seriously, which is why we sign these open letters to inform the rest of humanity that we take these issues very seriously. And this is also why we work with government actors, partially to implement what we think of as the best solutions to alignment, and also to make sure that like the appropriate space treaties and laws like for regarding asteroid impacts and space technology appropriately guards against the dangers while without like stifling innovation of like key technologies, for example, large scaling projects like ours.
Okay, great. So, in terms of policies that you're advocating for, what I'm hearing is that we don't want policies that would prevent innovation and prevent asteroids from hitting the Earth. At the
Yes.
same time, we don't want arbitrary actors throwing asteroids at the planet, especially Russia, but in general. And we're
Yes.
trying to find a happy medium of controlled and measured asteroid impacts. Is that right?
Exactly. As you might have seen, I try to take more of a middle road approach to many issues. Yeah,
Yeah,
especially
that's
in
great.
policy. Yeah,
Yeah, the middle road. Well, thank
exactly.
you very much, Linch. It's been a pleasure speaking with you about Open Asteroid Impact, and I
Hmm.
wish your startup the best of success.
Thank you. Glad to be on the show, and yeah, hope your viewers are excited about the project and are willing to apply to a great many jobs.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're now going to switch to serious mode. This was obviously an April 1st inspired episode, even though it's a little later than that. But the person we have with us today, Lynch, is a real person, not just a fictional CEO. He's the program officer at the Effective Altruism Fund, and you are launching a new fund called the AI Risk Mitigation Fund. So
Yeah,
maybe we could talk about a little bit about that, and then maybe talk about AI safety more seriously.
yeah. Glad to. Man,
Yeah,
it's good to be in character for the whole time, even with the glasses and
yeah,
to try to
nice.
motivate myself. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, effective altruism funds. It's like linked with effective altruism, which some of you guys might have heard of. A social
Hmm.
movement to try to like use like reason and evidence to do good, to do great amounts of good in the world. I think yeah, we have like four sub funds: the Global Health and Development Fund, the Animal Welfare Fund, the Effective Altruism and Infrastructure Fund, and the Long-Term Future Fund. The Long-Term Future Fund is so roughly sorry, stepping back, between the four funds, we distribute between 20 and $40 million to various projects, mostly individuals and small research projects. Uh, like talent building projects, like paying people to like self study, or like paying academics stipends and stuff to study issues relating to our course areas. And yeah, I first started volunteering for the Long Term Future Fund for about as a part-time grant maker. So one of the people who like look at grants and decide which ones are the like passes the cost effectiveness bar for the long term future stuff. Um, and before joining on like full time in I think Well, I think I basically started working full time in July, but then like officially like November last year. Yes, that's it. Effective alternate funds, and then for the AI risk mitigation fund, this was due to us thinking that none of the current funds capture like what we really want to see in something that's entirely like safety. So some of the people who would be at the AI risk mitigation fund are people fund the long-term future fund at EA funds. But I think like roughly the thing we think that would be like it's a better suited because long-term future fund covers like many different things, like covers not just AI risk, but also like biosecurity, like covers like nuclear war prevention. It covers like more abstract questions of like, what should the abstract discount rate be, like complicated esoteric philosophy
Yeah.
questions, like all sorts of things that like in the very early days, like when I say early days, a decade ago, say, um, the vast majority of people who care about like what we call long-term existential safety, or doom from AI, like also care about the other issues. But these days, between like ChatGPT, the UK AI Task Force, the Future of Life Institute, like Pulse AI letter, the case safety statement, which we parodied earlier today. Like all these things, I think, have resulting in people caring a lot about AI safety that do not share the same external interests or ideological positions that's common within like either effective altruism funds or people who might donate to like EA funds or our long-term future funds specifically. So we wanted like a fund that's catered specifically towards people who care about catastrophic AI safety, like AI risk, uh, without necessarily being on board with like thinking that the other problems are a big deal. We're thinking that like we should invest in like abstract philosophy and stuff like that.
Okay. Um, let's dig into that a little bit. So, as you mentioned, there were some fundamental reasons why separating out AI risk mitigation from long-term risks made
Mm-hmm.
sense. When you're looking at AI risk,
Yeah.
what specific kinds of risk is your fund currently focusing on?
Yeah, great question. So the AI risk mitigation fund, so like it's still like very early and we haven't like given out grants yet. But the general process, like we were like still like seeking like initial investment, which we have some. The general thinking is definitely that we only look at like catastrophic risks that might like endanger like large numbers of people or humanity. I think it makes a lot of sense to be concerned about other like present day harms like discriminatory sentencing algorithms. I think raw like economic impacts and so forth. I think, but ultimately there should be a fund, probably multiple funds, but at least one fund that just specializes entirely on like catastrophic harms of like large losses of life, um, pro- like from either AI misuse or AI takeover risk, which I think is the ones that we primarily care about.
All right. So
Um,
you have two, which is AI misuse, which I'm assuming is going to cover bad actor risk from AI, but it would
yeah.
also potentially include unintentional misuse. Um, is that accurate for covering those risk types, or is it primarily bad
Yeah,
actor?
yeah. It's not super well defined, but I think anything that can be like catastrophic, like large scale catastrophic or harmful, will be
Mhm.
under the purview. So it could be. So yeah, there's like various things. I mean, I'm not sure like super. Yeah, like I think that centrally the thing that we worried about is like AI takeover, like AI systems that start off being pretty reasonable, but like through some like quirk of poor reinforcement learning or or like in internal deception, they like passed like safety filters, and we allow them to take over larger and larger portions of like the economy or society, and then they at some point like launch a coup against humanity or attempt to take over. like so one central risk. Another central risk would be like the more standard misuse stories where like terrorists, for example, use like advanced artificial intelligence systems to like do like major cyber crime or like bioterrorism. But those are obviously far from the only like ways that like catastrophe could happen. Like
For sure.
yeah, like stable totalitarianism is one thing that people have been talking about for some years, but obviously
Hmm.
it's something that would be great to prevent if there's like good levers for that. I think
So,
there's also
but
just like general
mhm.
like societal instability that could happen. Yeah.
So in the case of the stable totalitarianism risk,
Yeah.
um, how does that fit under the catastrophic category?
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
stable totalitarianism could involve very few deaths and cause a lot of suffering. So how does that fit into your framework?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the sort of intuition is that like things that are really bad and mostly not addressed by existing projects, I think is like roughly the definition, like the like catastrophe definition that we're going with. We do not have like as a fund at least, we don't currently have a super well defined definition of catastrophe. I think plausibly we should, but we don't right now. I think I guess it's a question of like as we get feedback from the community and of our donors, maybe that's like a thing that we could look into. Um,
Hmm.
I know other people have proposed like definitions before of like things as bad or worse as like 10% of our humans dying. For context, I think COVID like official death numbers is maybe 0.3% of humans have died roughly, like 10 to 20 million. I think like if you include like excess mortality, it might be, and it's like not, we don't know for sure, but I think it's like probably closer to like between 0.5% and 1%.
Right.
Um,
But to put
so
that
so
in
yeah, this would be like
context, yeah,
10 to 20 times the size of COVID, like will be the like extreme catastrophe. But obviously, but we may not need about that high. Like I can imagine if that
right.
like the levels to prevent like issues that are like as big as COVID, obviously that would just be a really huge win for like
Yeah.
you know something like a relatively small fund. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That means that you'd be anchoring catastrophe to like something like pandemic risk or like
yeah,
catastrophic climate change that might occur from a small asteroid impact to go back to us, or a
yeah.
major super volcano risk or
Yeah,
things of
exactly,
that nature.
exactly. Oh man, I forgot to mention like impact window. That's another thing that's asteroids could be good for. Uh,
Impact winter. That's right. They might help cool the planet. You forgot
exactly,
about that.
exactly. Yeah,
Combat
yeah,
climate
yeah.
change.
Like a lot of the nuclear winter research can like people have like adapted them to like asteroid models and like yeah, there's like a certain yeah, like you could like create a cloud in the sky and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Without the nuclear fallout. It's great.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, yeah. Many of the
Yeah.
benefits, zero to radiation. Many of the costs as well, to be clear.
Yes, 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 yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes. We're tongue in cheek for sure. Um, how would you contrast? I mean, as you say, it's early days. You're still working on
yeah,
definitions. Um, from other funds that exist that work on AI risk,
yeah.
how do you see your fund being differentiated? So, like right now.
Yeah, great question. Great question. Um, I think a large part of this is that we like I joke I joke kind of we exist is a major differentiator. I think people just underestimate how few funds there are. I think like relative to the amount of hype and media attention there is about AI safety, and certainly relative to the amount of resources that's being spent on AI capabilities, there's like very little that actually goes to AI safety. I think like the Open Philanthropy Project, um, which is uh, money that's like funded by Dustin Moskovitz and Carrie Tuna. Dustin's the CEO of Asana. Most of his money, I believe, comes from Facebook or Meta, I guess now. Yeah, like they give maybe on the order of 100 to maybe 200, I think closer to $100 million a year to like AI risk and like catastrophic AI safety stuff. And I think they're like way more than half of like everything, like all the AI safety. Sorry, definitely way more than like 70% of the nonprofit space in AI safety. There's very little in government, although like people are trying to start initiatives in the UK and the US. And then
Yes.
you know, like for our like I satirize the labs, they do spend like non-trivial resources on like having like safety teams and people who like work on safety issues. And some of the things they work on are real. It's not, although I would consider like many like it's an uncontroversial position that many of the projects are kind of safety washing, that they do real work and some of the best work arguably. So it's like don't want to like downplay them too much. But anyway,
Hmm.
like and then there's like a number of other funds that have started in like recent in last year, but as far as I know, they have like given out very little money. And while the ARS mitigation fund itself has not given out any money, the fact that we, like like myself and some of the fund managers come from a lot of future fund means that we have experience with like giving out money to like real projects, to like small projects, and so forth. I think sorry, stepping back, relative to the open philanthropy project, we have um, we have less money and more capacity, so we give out to
Mm.
like smaller projects. We also have, this is like mostly related to our resources, but to a lesser degree, we also have somewhat different views on like what matters most in catastrophic or existential risk. So um, we tend to want to fund like earlier stage projects that have some chance of like growing to become like really important research ideas, but like are like mostly less proven within technical alignment. Similar with policy research, like people exploring policies that are not as fleshed out, rather than, whereas I think OpenPhil spends more of their resources on some combination of like on the technical side, they tend to like pay for work that might be like directly applicable in like nearish horizons to the scaling labs, and like the safety work that can be used directly by the scaling labs like very immediately, as well as policy research and policy advocacy that can be like used by governments for other things like more early on. I think relative to us, they also care more about public relations and being close to the labs, I guess, for
Yeah.
better or worse, unclear. But like harder for them to um, it's harder for them to fund projects that like advocate, for example, pausing or stopping like the work of the AI labs. Like they can do it sometimes, but it's like comes at like large social cost to them, so they're less willing to do it than we are. But we just try our best to care about, like try to like be as honest as we can, try to communicate our real beliefs and try not to hide behind like PR. Like we can't care about PR zero because we live in a society, but we try our best to minimize that. And like if an action we think is good and a grantee applies for an action that we think is good, we try to care especially little about reputation to the fund um, itself, even though we necessarily. Sorry, this is a lot of words.
Yeah, it is. I wanted, I heard all the words though. The thing I wanted to hone in on
Yeah.
was that you did a good job of illustrating your take on what the differences were in approaches between your fund, the long-term future fund, and OpenPhil.
Yeah.
Now, what I'm less clear on, and that you might be able to help me with, is what methods do you use in order to evaluate effectiveness of early stage researchers?
Yeah, great question. Great question. I think, yeah, compared to like a traditional like effective altruism, like the the deworming and botnets era, there's just like much less to go on. Like I think,
Yeah.
especially there's like very little like obviously they can't have like published like randomized controlled trials for how much like extra something reduces, because we don't, there's no way to communicate between the quantum branches. You can't just be like, oh, in like the other world, like they tried this extra thing and then they died. It doesn't really work that way.
That would be
So
nice.
would be great. But would also be confusing, but would be great in many ways. So it's like definitely more of a judgment-based call, which means there's more subjectivity involved. We try our best to look at like several different factors when we evaluate a grant. I should mention that I personally like don't like look at the technical grants as much, because like I'm like relatively technical background. I worked at Google before, and like I do ML stuff. I haven't like done like my own like original research in AI safety, and like the technical fund managers are people who have done their own research and so forth. But like my understanding, but I think it's like similar across different grants that like, yeah, we look at we look at theory of change, which is different from academia. We try to understand whether it makes sense at what they do makes sense at all. Oh, bye, Alton.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. So we try to understand if they have a plausible theory for their work being like on the path to a safe future, or reducing solving or helping to solve an important aspect of reducing catastrophic risk. We look at like relatively standard metrics for like how likely they are to succeed in research. So if they're like an academic, or like in the academic ecosystem, so for example, like later stage graduate student, early stage professor, which is some of the people we found, we look at like fairly normal things like H index for citations, for like stuff like that. To a large degree, we rely on our advisors, well, some combination of our own judgment, our advisors, to like understand how good the research itself is, which is, I mean, it's like a lot of like what makes for good research is like not even like super related to like AI safety. It's just like, do you think their work replicates? Like, is it truthful? Like, did they consider all the important hypotheses that may lead to the results? In ML, it's like there's a lot of in like empirical machine learning safety, there's a lot of just like fiddly bits of like you have a baseline, you have a hypothesis, you think it's better. Did you actually work enough on the baseline to make sure it's implemented correctly? And is your hypothesis actually the new thing is actually better than the baseline you said? Stuff like that. We like not all of the people we support go through the traditional academic system. I think we're actually probably the biggest funder of like independent like AI safety research that's not directly tied to academia. We're like a nonprofit. So for those people, we look at like the other types of publications. In this field, frequently people try to publish in like blog posts and like GitHubs and stuff. So we look at those. It's less good of a pre-vetted system as academia, but has some advantages. I think like one thing is that I think academia, I don't know, just like in like machine learning, it's just like it's just extremely empirical field. It's like very hard to get anything conceptual published in like machine learning. And AI safety is like just less of a paradigmic field than like most of machine learning. So it's just like it's really necessary to have some place to publish things out, like more like some combination of philosophy and like a bit of empiricism and some math, which doesn't have exact home for it. Like different people try to publish in different places. Like there's like some AI subfields in that ML that sometimes people try to publish, sometimes people try to publish in philosophy, or like economics or whatever. But there's just a lot of AI safety work that doesn't have a clear academic home, and we like to fund them and we try to evaluate them.
That's
Yeah.
great. I want to pivot from talking about the funds to talking about you. We're
Mm-hmm.
going to be on for
Sure.
maybe like 10 more minutes, but I wanted to spend that time talking about how did you get here? Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I think more. Yeah, I definitely come from like a factory altruism background more than most people. I think um, when I was like 9 or 10, I remember like learning that um, like I think I forgot it's like 5-10 million people die of like 50 million people die of starvation a year. I remember there was some ridiculously large number that my teacher said, which I later learned was false. But I was 10. I did not have super uh, good models of the world or understanding that people can just like say passionate things that are false. Um, but at the time, I was like, wow, this is a big deal. And I remember other students in the school did not think it was a big deal. I mean, like I said, it was a false fact, so I can't give myself that much credit. But I just remember being why I thought it was a big deal and being like shocked that other people didn't, and just being thinking that like we live in a broken world, and we need to do something to fix it. And I'm someone, so I should be one of the people to fix it. So I think that's kind of like a driving factor, just um, like seeing like big numbers and like can like wanting to like do something good for the world. And then like yeah, I came across Peter Singer's like writings on global poverty in high school. I did not. It took me a while, but I found them persuasive eventually. Like just thinking through the philosophy, and then I came across. I wanted to be a developmental economist when I was growing. Economist when I was in college, and I came across like GiveWell, which is a charity evaluator that on global health issues, and through that like affected altruism while like I was like doing research slash procrastinating on like my homework for the dev econ. So I think that was the rough I got to EA. I think in late college I decided that I wasn't going to be an economist. I think it was not necessarily the right move, but it's like in retrospect it was. But at the time, my reasoning was that I didn't go to like the most like elite colleges, so it was like, and like I had like very high test scores, but not much else going on like academically for me. So I didn't seem likely I get into like a top 10-ish program in econ, and econ's like very tail heavy, like the the top like researchers just publish so much more than others, and the top researchers disproportionately come from lower ranked fields. I think there's like there are a few like notable exceptions, but they're known to be exceptions, and most people are not exceptional. So I decided to like do for a while. I was doing only to work what's called only to give, which it just like involves working in tech and making money and donating it for a while. Yeah, I taught like myself programming so I could work at Google and stuff. So that was fun. And then yeah, like in early 2020, I happened to have left my job at a startup, and I started like, and it was like the startup. I was like take some time off, and there was a startup pandemic, and then I got really obsessed with pandemic things, and I started doing forecasting and some like pandemic like COVID related research for other people, and it turns out I was pretty good at like synthesizing information quickly. Um, so yeah, so then from that I pivoted to like doing more like research, like cost prioritization style research for nonprofit co priorities, um, and that like in addition to like my like social or like ideas based connections with EA, I also then had like more professional connection, which like led me to start working at volunteer capacity at effective action funds. Yeah, and then after some time, I decided that like this grant making slash communicating grant making related work is a better fit for my skill set and like high impact and research, I switched to this full time.
Okay, that gives a pretty full interview, like overview of like how you got from where you were thinking at school to where you are now.
Yeah.
Um, I do notice that there are a few things that are similar to my own path and a few things that are
Mhm.
different. One of the things we have in common is we both taught ourselves programming to get a job.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
It was definitely a mercenary economic thing for me. I mean, obviously it was like I thought I would like the job, you know, and I hate it and stuff. But yeah, I wasn't. Well, I definitely was not one of the personally. I was not one of those people who grew up being like, "Wow, computers are so cool!" Like, you know, gonna
yeah,
start like learning to program at the age of 10 because computers are so cool. I would love to be that type of person, but no, it's yeah, not me.
me neither. I started so we both studied quantitative fields.
Mm-hmm.
I was studying just pure math. I specialized in
Yes.
abstract algebra.
Oh,
But
I love
yeah,
abstract algebra. It's so beautiful.
it is very beautiful.
Yeah.
And I still like it quite a bit. I was very glad that I was introduced to that through my program.
Do you still do it?
But sometimes I do like just I play
Wow.
with group theory problems. Like there are toy problems that you can work
Of
with.
course.
I haven't like done any novel research, but I do like playing with seeing how abstract algebra applies to all sorts of random stuff, like word
Yeah.
games or arrangements of things in a room or networks of
Oh,
there are just so many places in life where it ends up being applicable. And just thinking about it is fun, or trying to write it down and seeing, well, what group is this?
do you have
Is
any writing about this? Like
no,
a
no, this
blog
is
post
just
or
like
something?
a maybe I should. That would be sort of
Yeah.
fun. Just write a hobby math blog. I
Yeah,
could do that
yeah.
over the world. I know that one
Yeah.
of the
Well,
things that
mhm.
interested me a lot was applications of group theory to music.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, I've heard of
I've
that. Yeah. But you
yeah,
mentioned
that
other things like word games and arrangements of things in a room that I have not really heard of
no,
before.
no.
So,
It Yeah, there's not as much. It turns out that yeah, abstract algebra just applies to so many arbitrary random things in life if you think
yeah.
about it.
I think I don't think about it. So I think
Yeah,
I'm just missing out. I just remember this being this like beautiful thing that I basically never touched. Like after school. But like everything I touched in the sense that like, you know, I did linear algebra and like I don't know, like like the modular thing and stuff like that. That's like, you know, can be explained by abstract algebra. But yeah, I feel like I personally just have not like really done much and kind of regret it.
yeah. Well, it's never too late.
Sure.
I think that if you were to get into it again, there are a couple of really well written books that were written in the '60s and cost like a few dollars to get on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the field, most of the core of the field was already very well established by then. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
yeah, so it's like it's not
Yeah.
like you're going to get much out of a brand new publication. So I don't know. I find that sometimes going into a random topic these days is still worth my time if you can
Maybe I
find the
should just
time.
yeah, maybe I should just find like a textbook and go through some problems. I did study
Mhm.
it, but I forgot almost everything. So, but I'm
Yeah,
sure it'll be faster the second time around. At least I hope so.
yeah, yeah. A book that I went through after I learned how to program that was worth my time was Concrete Mathematics by
Ooh,
Donald Knuth. So Donald Knuth wrote
yeah,
this as
you've
a
heard of it.
textbook for his university with someone else, I think. But
Mm-hmm.
Concrete Mathematics was just a really nice book, and it covers all the basic areas of mathematics that are relevant to computer science, but it focuses on the math part, and that's why rather than the computer science, and that's why I really like it because it covers a very wide field. A lot of them are discrete math problems, and they're really interesting. Lots of geometry, lots of group theory, lots of number theory, just everything. So it's really fun as a
Yeah,
as an
I,
independent study.
I just look at the Amazon listing. It was like concrete mathematics covers continuous and discrete math. I was like, wow.
Yes. I don't know. I found that book so well written and kind of amusing to read, and
Yeah.
like the material covers is very high quality, and it served me well.
Mhm.
So I would recommend that to anybody who's just looking for independent study in math. If you didn't really do it, if you have some background but didn't get as deep as you wanted when you were
Mhm.
in university,
Yeah.
that'll give you like a very solid undergrad math background after you finish that book.
I should check that out. A friend of mine is teaching me topology on Sunday. That's like a field that I haven't studied before, so I'm excited.
Oh, topology is great too.
Yeah.
You know, actually, the main thing that when I was in university, the area that I just did not like at all was analysis, but I've found that I like it more now. But when I was
Mm.
in university, I hated it so much. I was like, I'd rather just be studying algebra. But
I didn't like it that
now I
much,
appreciate
but
it.
like I
Yeah,
knew I had to study it because I thought I was gonna try to go for grad school in econ, and that's definitely the
you
main
have
math
to.
thing. Yeah, main math thing that graduate level econ relies on.
Yeah, I like it more now that like I think one of the reasons why I switched to liking it more is that just
Mhm.
thinking about them as interesting problems makes them far more fun um, than I have to study it for this field
That's very
or for
reasonable.
the yeah, it's
Yeah.
genuinely generally true. Yeah.
What do you think you were gonna do when you were like in college? Were you thinking you'll be a professor at one point or like a
There
math
was one point
teacher?
when I thought I might go into being a professor, but I got
Mhm.
disillusioned with like the politics at universities really fast.
Oh wow.
And then I thought that what I was going to end up doing was curriculum development. And
Mm.
in an alternate universe, that's probably what I would have done.
You'd
In
be like
fact,
edutech.
yeah, edutech, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah, I remember there was a crossroads point when I had my two offers on the table. One of them was for like a edutech job, and one of them was for a full stack software job. And I ended up
Mhm.
taking the full stack software job, and
Mhm.
that determined that sent me on a completely different trajectory than I would have gone
Right.
otherwise. Yeah.
Why do you take the full stack one? Like higher pay or better
Well, it was higher
opportunities?
pay, but that wasn't the reason. The real reason was that I thought it had more optionality. And that was
Mm.
true. That ended up
Yeah.
being very true. If I'd gone down the education route, there was a narrow path I could have, a few narrow branches I could have followed.
That makes
Whereas,
sense.
yeah, from the full stack job, there were just so many options past that point.
Yeah.
It was the right, in retrospect, it was absolutely the right choice for that
Yeah.
exact reason. Yeah. Anyway, we are at time. It has been a
Oh,
pleasure. Yeah, pleasure speaking with you.
yeah. Pleasure as well. Pleasure as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To leave our listeners with anything, do you have any links that you'd like to share with them or directions you'd like our listeners
Sure.
to
People
go?
could look at the AI. People who are already familiar with AI safety, which it sounds like your podcast fairly likely, they could look at our fund and give us feedback. They can also donate now, but just keep in mind that yeah, like under things like track record, it only talks about the projects we funded in the past under a different fund and not under this one because we haven't given out any projects yet. But I think the website's pretty well developed at this point, so people who are interested in
Okay.
safety can look at it and decide whether they want to give to it.
Hmm.
Um, let's see if there's anything else. Oh, people who like the satire can there's a website, openasteroidimpact.org, impact.org. I'm typing out this on chat. I don't know if you're gonna do any
Yeah,
post
our
processing,
viewers
but
can't see that, but I am saving the links and I'm going to speak them out loud. So the two links that we had shared are airiskfund.com. That's for the serious real money, real projects project, if you'd like to donate money. And then the other satire site is openasteroidimpact.org. I will put those links in the description below after this
wonderful.
episode. All right. All right. It's been a pleasure,
Yeah,
Lynch. Lynch.
all good, all good.
Yeah, it's all
Pleasure,
good.
pleasure, Andrew.
Yeah. All
See
right.
ya.